I joined 61 2nd Avenue. It was an all brahmachari temple. Sarup was there, but he wouldn't speak to me because I'm a girl. And so Brahmananda and Jayadoita found out that I was his sister. He had mentioned me. And Brahmananda gave me my first sari, and Jayadoita showed me how to put tilak on. He put tilak on me, really sweet. And they sent me to Boston, where Satsvarup was a social worker at the time. It was 69. It was, I think, October of 69. So I actually joined in Boston. And the first time I saw Prabhupada, he was coming that Christmas. So I joined right before Prabhupada actually came to that temple. I know that for a fact because one of the brahmatrinis kept singing, "He knows if you've been chanting." And it's like, ay, ay, ay. And it was pretty whack. So, okay, so before I know it, Prabhupada's there. And it was a little bit intimidating. I just remember when he was coming into the temple, everybody yelled, "Prabhupada," and Saradia ran past me with a mridanga and actually knocked me over. It was like frantic. And so I decided, I don't know if this is right for me, these people. So I went and hid downstairs in the, where the press was going to be, behind a pillar. I just stood there and hid. You know, I still couldn't make up my mind if I was actually going to do this or not. And before I knew it, the devotees were showing Prabhupada the downstairs where the BBT was going to go. And they walked around, and all of a sudden I was just exposed, standing there behind a pillar. I don't know if I gave a namaste. I don't know what I did, because I was really brand new and terrified. But later on, when I got initiated, Brahmananda told me that he explained to Prabhupada who I was, and that Prabhupada said, "Ah, yes, I remember her face." And I was so touched by that, like that Prabhupada would remember who I was. Such mercy. It's unbelievable. I was married to a devotee named Sridham, who was Prabhupada's personal servant in the late 60s. And it was during the time of the so-called moon landing. And Sridham told me that while he was massaging Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada would talk about this moon landing. On one of the times, Prabhupada said that when he was a small child, his father took him to the cinema to see a movie about a big gorilla. And Sridham said, "King Kong, Prabhupada?" And Prabhupada's eyes got real big. And he said, "You have seen? You know about?" And Sridham said, "Oh, yes, yes. Everybody knows about King Kong, Srila Prabhupada. It's a very famous movie, and everybody knows about that gorilla." And Prabhupada nodded. Ah. And he said, "Well, in this movie, it looked like the gorilla was climbing the Empire State Building and swatting airplanes. But we know that that's not true, that the clouds that the airplanes were going through were probably cotton, and it was toy airplanes and a toy Empire State Building and not even a real gorilla." He said, "So in this way, they can very easily make it look like they had landed on the moon, when in actuality, we know that they didn't." And then he went on to explain the motivations behind this, that it was due to the government wanting to instill a feeling of patriotism and national pride in the public, because they would soon be raising taxes substantially on the American people. And sure enough, Sridham told me that within a few weeks later, spread all over the newspapers was a giant tax increase. And Prabhupada said, yes, this is why they have said they have landed on the moon. I was the first widow in the movement, the first widow in ISKCON. And because of that, I was called in for a personal darshan with Srila Prabhupada. Now, I'll have to give some background information for it to make sense. Okay, I joined the movement in my teens with my younger brother, got married after 8 months, opened different temples with my then husband, and had a daughter. Then he fell away from devotional service, left the movement, and then left his body. I wanted to know if I was prohibited to ever remarry and have more children. My daughter was about 2 years old. I was just in my low 20s. I didn't know, what was expected of me, so I asked. So after several days, actually, nobody wanted to be the person who told Srila Prabhupada what happened. But finally, his servant, who was Shrutakirti at the time, did tell Srila Prabhupada, and also said that the widow wants to remarry. So, which didn't look very good for me, but before I knew it, I was called in for a darshan in Srila Prabhupada's quarters. So I was terrified. I said, "I'm not going." So my brother said, "I'll go with you, I'll go with you." And we formulated a plan while running around finding a babysitter for Nimai and running around getting ready to go up to his quarters. And the plan was that if things were looking bleak for me, I would give him a nudge or a sign, and he would explain to Srila Prabhupada My sister feels like she needs to remarry for protection. This was our plan. Like, we were thinking that we could control the situation, possibly manipulate. So we go running upstairs, and before we even got into his quarters, this is in Los Angeles, his quarters, we were in the doorway, and I heard Prabhupada say, "So, you wish to remarry?" I was terrified. I said, in a voice I could barely recognize, I said, "Not right away, Srila Prabhupada. I just wanted to know if I would be forbidden." And he said, "Forbidden? I will not forbid you, but you are asking my opinion." What could I say to that? No thanks, I'll pass. I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." He said, "Don't do it." And by this time, we all sat down. It was myself, my brother, and Shrutikirti. We were alone in his quarters. He began to say, "What is your guarantee the next one will be different? In this age, the women are entrained in chastity, the men are entrained in dharma. What is your guarantee the next one will be different? Can he give you a written guarantee?" He was making jokes. He said, "Krishna has already given you one child. Marriage is for union. For children, you already have one child. Give all your love to that child." And he said a lot of other things that I don't remember exactly everything, but I remember at some point I must have given my brother the nudge, because he said, "Srila Prabhupada, my sister feels like she needs to remarry for protection." And Prabhupada's eyes got really big, and he said, "You are not protected to me. You are not protected to my brother. You are not protected to Shrutikirti." He said, "Just see, there is no faith." And he went on to explain how, in relation to Krishna, we're all Prakriti. Krishna is the only Purusha. We're all Prakriti, that a man cannot actually protect his wife. He can't protect her from disease, from old age, from death. Only Krishna is our only protection. He was speaking the philosophy. It was a little lofty because we were new devotees. I could see in the eyes of the other two, it was like, whoa. And this is what he was saying to us. And let me think. Then my brother recited some Sanskrit, and he said, "Srila Prabhupada, I will protect her. I am her brother." And Prabhupada said, "Very nice." And during this time, I really didn't look up much because I was so terrified. I kind of looked down. I looked up once, and I just remember he was sitting behind his desk, and the sun was shining in the window, and his beautiful, round, soft head was effulgent and golden, and his voice was like coming from ages. And I just thought, I felt like a fly. I felt so insignificant and soiled. I was just absolutely terrified. So he didn't say much to me because I didn't look up. But as we were leaving, he said something, and all three of us turned around. And then Prabhupada only looked at me and only spoke to me. And he said, "Read the books. I have written so many books. All day long I read, I write, I chant, I take bath. You do like this." And he said it with such compassion and love. And I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." And that was the end of it. We walked down the stairs. And then, when I first became a widow, other people were saying, "Oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, you should do that." But after that, I could say, "Oh, no, Prabhupada didn't tell me that. Prabhupada didn't tell me that. Prabhupada told me that." Really, nobody knew what was said, but I had a personal darshan. There were a lot of women that didn't have husbands. For some reason, the husbands left or whatever, and they had children. And most of the women were hoping to remarry, because we were all pretty young at the time. And like myself, the women wanted sons. They wanted a fixed-up husband. So one time I was listening to his class, and we were in the balcony, and he said, I think I have it verbatim, "If a woman remarries in the presence of a child, she becomes the enemy of that child." And I saw 4 or 5 hands go up. And then without looking up, Prabhupada said, "Son or daughter." And the hands went down, because all these women, including myself, had daughters. I already knew the answer, but some of the women were hoping. And he immediately, without even looking up, said, "Son or daughter." And that was pretty interesting. On one of his visits to New Dwarka, I happened to be across the street. It was about 10 or 11 o'clock, and I was across the street. I was just about to cross 2 little Gurukula boys, about age 4 and 6. And we look up, and here comes Srila Prabhupada. You never know when you were going to see him. And there was nobody else out at that time. No one was on the street, no cars, no nothing. And here comes Srila Prabhupada. He was flanked by Rameshwara on one side and Radhaballabha on the other. And they seemed to be in a rush. And the rumors were that there were deadline problems, money problems, problems with the artwork. There was a lot going on to get these books out, and things were intense. So he's coming across the street, and I would imagine he was going towards the BBT, but he started walking straight towards us. So I thought, nah, couldn't be. And then he kept coming closer and closer, and my knees started buckling, and I'm like, he's coming right to where we're standing. Sure enough, he came right in front of us, and he pointed to one of the boys, a little boy named Gopal, and he said, he is not wearing neck beads. You can take care of this? And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. Before I could even get that out, he was gone. He was quick. He didn't waste a second. And I thought how wonderful that he engaged me, but also it was instructive how every facet of Krishna consciousness was important and was noticed by him. Because no matter what was going on with deadlines, money problems, book distribution, he noticed that one little boy didn't have neck beads. So, of course, I became a neck bead fanatic and made sure all the children had neck beads after that. But I thought, how sweet, just how sweet, and how every aspect is equally important in Krishna consciousness. Brahmananda said in a class in Vrindavan a few years ago that in the beginning we were like Prabhupada's guinea pigs, or better still, like his laboratory rats. And I can think of so many instances, like even in my own life, after I got married, in which Satsvarup did a fire yajna, we also got married legally. I called my mother to tell her I was now a married woman. And my mother said, really? What's his name? And I said, hold on, I'll ask him. Because I didn't know his regular name. And my mother said, hold on, I'll ask him? You're nuts. Bang, hung the phone up. And I thought, that's pretty far out and revolutionary even for me. But, you know, marrying someone you didn't know, dancing on the street in sheets, you know, we would do a lot for Prabhupada, because look what he did for us. And I'm so proud and grateful to have been among Prabhupada's laboratory rats. I would gladly be one again and again, many, many, many lifetimes over. Jai Anilo Premadana Karuna Prachu